Well, I've now been joined by James Bidwell, who is the founder of Springwise and also the CEO of Reset. James, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Very nice to see you. My gosh, things are happening fast.
Things are moving. Today is the slowest it'll ever be for the rest of our lives, believe it or not.
That's a scary thought.
It's a scary thought.
How do we cope with this pace of change? I suppose more fundamentally, how does a business cope with this pace of change?
So it is the question of the day. It's no surprise that this conference is all about high velocity. And the first thing I think we have to do is awareness. And actually, it's the first time I've ever seen the retail industry at large kind of taking note that disruption and change is happening at such a rapid pace. I mean, I think what we say, certainly at Springwise, is the first thing to do is to be aware of it, and the second is to see what's happening every day. So at Springwise, as you know, we're providing the kind of the latest innovations and ideas from all around the world, looking at the outliers. And if you can see those emerging kind of thoughts and what the kind of the young graduates, the incubators, the startups are doing, then you can sort of start to map the landscape. And so that awareness is the first point.
Now, just to unpack a little bit of that.
Yeah.
I don't know, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, when you wanted to go and look at innovations, you looked at America and you might have looked at European cities for some of the fashion areas. Are you seeing from your trend scouts around the world that a lot of these new innovations, new ideas are coming from Asia and maybe from India and from Indonesia and places like that?
So it's a brilliant question. So the first thing is now, you don't have to travel, which is to go and see these places. I mean, although it is still brilliant to experience place and be in real life, but we have scouts in 190 countries. We're seeing big trends of new ideas coming from India, China, South America. Are really where we're seeing a lot of emerging innovations, and we're seeing a lot more kind of interesting things coming through. We're also seeing a huge macro trend on number of sustainable innovations and social innovations. But the geographical reach, without that, at the beginning it was all West Coast California, stuff in London and the startup scenes, the obvious places, Berlin. But now we're seeing much more in emerging markets, and we're seeing really interesting non-tech innovations, as well as, of course, the tech stuff that you would obviously think of.
Okay, so the first thing was awareness. What's the second thing?
Well, the second thing is, so if you have the awareness and the intelligence, so you have that, then it's like the agility to actually have impact. So what was a great speaker this morning talking about one of the key tenets in retail is action, and the ability to execute and do that in a very flexible and agile way. So a lot of what we're doing with Reset, our consultancy business, is we're helping businesses be flexible enough and create a culture where there is empowered decision making and there is kind of the license, if you like, to make the right decision at the right time in order to move the business on. So the age of the hierarchical kind of are you being served model of kind of downward kind of management, is over, and you need to have organizations that are almost organic and then can react and respond to the change.
A lot of people talk the talk, but are companies really reorganising themselves so there isn't a hierarchical structure in the way in which they make decisions?
So some are, some aren't, and it's amazing when you come across an enlightened CEO. So I think that kind of one of the big things for the CEOs of the future is kind of having that agile and flexible mindset. And when you find the guys or the ladies who are in that mindset, it is amazing the transformation that they are starting to affect. But the kind of two things: one is it takes a long time. So, shifting culture is a very, very long-term kind of issue. And if the market is shifting faster than you can shift your culture, then you are in trouble. But I think we are seeing, the enlightened businesses, and it's usually before they go downhill. So the ones that sort of are, right in trouble, then they're kind of firefighting, particularly some of the UK retailers at the moment, the department store, Debenhams, people like that. It's very, very difficult for them to come back. But the more enlightened ones, so you look at Selfridges, they're transforming, they're agile, they're doing new stuff all the time.
So what's the delta between the ones who are going to thrive and prosper and the ones that are going to find life very difficult in the next few years?
Again, I think it's mindset, people, awareness of what's happening, the understanding and the reckoning that, again, the pace of change is accelerating faster and faster every day, and hiring people who can cope with that, and hiring people who are open and not kind of in that sort of old hierarchical thing, just want the kind of more of a linear progression through their lives, but who are welcoming this exponential world in which we live.
So one last question, James. How would you summarise, maybe in one word or maybe two? I'll let you have two. The times we're living in today.
It's a very, very good question. In some ways, scary because the whole climate change thing, which we mustn't forget. But in other ways, amazingly energizing. So scary and energizing.
Well, that's a nice yin and yang to finish with. James Bidwell, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Brilliant to see you, David. Thank you.